not quite in the back of the ute, but this is Luke McDonald. He's a farm manager and he's growing grain, both conventionally and organically, but he's got some exciting news to tell us because he's trying to slip into the regenerative way, and all is going good. So I've had a bit of a drive around and I'm really impressed with what he's been doing. Hi Luke, thanks for
G'day Tamsin.
letting me use your ute to lead guest.
No worries.
All good, so just let us know, you haven't been here long, have you?
Not really, only the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you sort of jumped at the chance to be able to have an influence on this farm with the regenerative principles.
Yeah, I was headhunted, I suppose you'd say. Not new to the area, but new to this farm. And yeah, I've been in farming all my life and around farming all my life and really taken the regen way of farming to heart and sort of, you know, I think that's the future of farming. Just so yeah, got the opportunity to come here and sort of implement that here for these guys that own this place. It's been good. We got conventional stuff and organic stuff as well, but trying to bring the conventional into a more regenerative way of farming in the way of, for a start, just treat all the fertiliser as if it's an organic farm. It's just easier for logistics.
So yeah, when you were driving around, you mentioned that, you know, how is it, because you've been, well, we've both been to sort of this very similar field days and conferences and things, and you were getting quite frustrated with, but what do I actually do on farm? And now you've got the reins to be, as you are a manager, and so what would your advice be at the very, very beginning with anybody on any farm with regards to the fertiliser side of things?
You've still got to be a viable place, and we've been a viable business. You've still got to, you can't just go cold turkey and say, right, stop doing what you're doing and do this, don't use any more chemicals, because we've been growing crops a certain way for so long, you can't just stop that cold turkey. So everyone says, oh, well, if you don't do anything, just do something. So we are doing something in the way of, right, we're changing the way the fertiliser we use. We're using organic fertiliser instead of synthetic fertiliser. And it's actually at the moment cheaper and sometimes easier to get at the moment. So yeah, that's one thing. We've still got to use some chemicals and some, you know, some synthetic inputs, but just trying to turn the ship around, I suppose you would say. Just change the direction. It won't happen overnight, but we just got to, yeah, and more about feeding. Not be so worried about what do I do, what inputs, what. Just the biggest thing is feed the biology in your soil, and then once you got the biology going, well then, you know, they do the work for you.
Well, that's what you were saying, was that take the emphasis off balancing the chemistry.
So you can have a perfectly balanced soil with no biology and you won't grow anything. You can have an unbalanced soil with heaps of biology and you'll grow a crop. So to me, it's pretty simple. Feed your biology and they do the work.
And you're still growing monocultures?
We are still growing monocultures, yes.
And I don't think that's going to change really, is it?
Not really. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff over in the States and stuff with companion cropping and that's something we'd like to get into in the future. But yes, we are growing monocultures, but we're in a full, you know, every farmer is in a full cropping rotation, season on season, because, you know, for weed cycles, disease cycles.
But I was actually really impressed by the quality of your monoculture. And like you were saying, there's no weeds.
No, there's no weeds because I think outside the box a little bit. That's probably why they got me here. All these weird and wonderful ideas. And I've got mates in the conventional scene. I know who I'm talking about if they watch this video. They're always thinking outside the box. And big thing is plant population, I think. Well, not think, I know, I've proved it. We increased the planting rate of all our crops.
So is that decreasing the row size?
Yeah, we've done that. We've moved the row spacings closer together.
Yeah.
We've increased on our organics the planting rate, so we've got more seeds germinating. This year was good because we had, you know, excellent rain. We got 100% germination.
Yeah.
And the crop came up and it grew. Every plant came up. So, well, you saw it. You saw the no weeds, and I think I put it down to that. You saw the strips where the GPS played up, and we had a couple of strips of weeds just because there was nothing else growing there.
Yeah. And your monoculture is specifically for?
For growing grain for stock feed.
And the stock is on farm?
Yes.
Because the other part of your farm is the poultry or
Yeah.
the chicken
Yep.
side
So we're
of
growing
things.
all our grain to put into the poultry.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, with poultry, the full cycle is their poo, so you've got all the chicken manure.
So we're pretty blessed, I suppose you'd say, if that's the right word. We've got endless chook manure on tap.
Yeah, and the feathers.
And the feathers and everything else. But it's just we have to use it up, otherwise it stockpiles. So we have a lot of chook manure, yeah.
And that's what happened when you first got here, there were a lot of piles.
There's a lot of piles not being spread, so we're spreading a lot. But in saying that, we're also just got to be careful that we know what we're spreading as well. Even though it's poo, it could be, there's lots of different variables. So we analyse that and get the analysis so we know exactly what we're putting on.
Yeah.
And then a big emphasis on seed dressings and biologicals.
Yeah.
Yeah, to kickstart that life in your soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the biology. So, and also you just dug a hole on a paddock that hasn't been disturbed for about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So a new farm we've got, which was just, well, everyone says it's not very good country, old sheep country, hasn't had a crop in it, but had a lot of just natural grasses on it. We're bringing that back into an organic cropping situation.
How did you start then?
Went out there, it was pretty wet, and just got a shovel. Every good farmer should have a shovel in the back of his ute, and had a dig. Look what I was dealing with. And in doing that, pretty quickly realised I had fungal activity already in the soil from all the natural native grasses or whatever. So I realised quickly I can't disturb that because it's very fragile, as you saw. We dug that hole and it's not very deep. So just thinking, well, how can I increase the diversity there rather than ploughing it to dust? So we'll plant a cover crop in that. Use the grasses that are there through the summer with some other legumes and deep, big taprooted plants, just to try and get some diversity and break it up a bit. And
and then a bit further down in the hole, there was moisture.
Yeah, exactly. And that was on a harder bit that was bare. There was actually still moisture and fungal activity still there. So I can't destroy that last 4 or 5 years of.
So that shovel saved that paddock.
That shovel saved it from the offsets.
So that would be a really exciting paddock for me to come back and have a look at and see how that goes.
Yeah.
But will that be your first multi-species then in this farm?
Me directly planning on, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of other multi-species for grazing purposes around the place, which we've seen benefits from the stock growing on there, and I'm guessing the next run around we might start to see the benefits in the soil from the next crop being planted in there.
Yeah. And something else is really exciting, because I do love these great big machines and the jobs they do. But you announced that you were thinking about getting that seeder that does...
Yeah, we're looking at a new seeder. I spent a lot of time thinking about every different scenario and what I want to plant, and we'll have the capability of being able to plant 3 different things down 3 different rows. We'll be able to run up to 4 separate products plus liquid, do every conceivable configuration.
So that is more along the lines of companion planting rather than the mixed species where everything's growing in one row.
Well, it's everything. If you've got an idea, you want to plant something, this machine will have that capability. If I want to plant sorghum, oats and peas, I can, down 3 separate rows. Or if I want to plant crop and multi-species underneath that won't interfere with the crop, I can. It just gives me that option of being able to do.
Okay, doing the separate rows as well.
Separate rows,
Okay, I've got it now, yeah.
Plus liquid inject, which I think's the future.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way to put on your inoculants and your biologicals and...
Yeah, so down the same...
Down the same chute.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. And then just finally, going back to the weed scenario, because we had a chat and we realised that we were actually in the same conference before we even knew each other.
Yeah.
And it was Jeff Bassett talking about weeds.
Yeah.
And that was a light bulb moment for Luke and me on the same day.
Yes.
And so what did you have to say about the weed side of things?
The first thing I would say to anyone that goes to these field days and goes, what can I do, is go out and buy the book When Weeds Talk. And read that book cover to cover and study that graph that's in it, that table, and start walking around and get a weed identifying book for a start as well.
Yeah.
And start to have a look at what weeds are growing and find out what they're telling you. Because for me, I can drive past the paddock and see the weeds. I know, I've got bad compaction in there or acidity or whatever, and stop treating the symptom, which is the weed. Start looking at what's that weed telling you. And I believe that's where chemical fallow and conventional farming and weed resistance, I don't think it's a chemical problem, it's a flat out nutrition problem.
Yeah.
And feathertop roach grass thrives in a conventional chemical fallow situation.
Yeah. So what you said was the more that you spray, the more that you're actually...
The more you spray, the more of a perfect environment you're making for that weed that you're trying to kill, and you're like trying to find the next best chemical to try and kill it.
Yeah.
Instead of going, hang on, what can I do? What's that weed telling me? Look at underneath that weed. What's that trying to do to you?
Yeah.
Do for you.
Yeah.
Tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, that's that book, and learn what weeds are. Because a lot of weeds also are palatable, like it's free stock food.
Yeah.
You know, and weeds, because we've been conventionally farming for so long and our soils are so depleted, nature's trying to naturally put those weeds there to change it. So you need to know why nature's wanting to put those weeds there and fix those issues, not get rid of your weeds.
And that's really now the purpose for us to regenerate is, like you said, if we're waiting for Mother Nature to help,
we'll all be dead and gone.
yes, we'll be starving.
So for instance, if I see that paddock we saw where the manure spreaders were spreading, that had lots of weeds in there with big tap roots. So straight away it's compacted and hard. So I got the tractor out and burned heaps of diesel and wore off heaps of points, and we ripped it. So to speed up.
Yeah. And then you've put the compost on.
Yeah, so we've got it ripped and opened up and aerated. And now we're like, right, we've got that. We're spreading the manure and biologicals. And
Monday it's raining.
Yes, I ordered 2 inches.
That's right, good. And then you will then plant into it.
And we'll plant straight into it.
Yeah.
Yep. Planting sorghum in narrow rows, which is not common practice, but I'm having a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop clicking the handle because it'll come up on the...
that mic's picking it up.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you, Luke.
That's all right.
I've had a really, really good morning. I'm glad I got up at Hoppers 5.
Had your tradies breakfast.
That's it. Had a tradies breakfast. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Off the top of your head.
Yeah, I think we need to stop. These field days are good, but we need to move forward into the commercial realm. Like, go on to the days of trying to dance around and find a worm and a butterfly and stuff. We still have to farm profitably. And yes, everyone's like, it's not about yield. Well, it is about yield because that's what pays the bills. We just need to change our thinking and, you know,
a big quality of yield, I'd like to add.
Yeah, eventually, but
quality.
Yeah, eventually. But we need to know, people need to know a plan. People need to know, sure, all the microbiology and all that stuff's good and it's interesting to know, but that's not, first thing is buy a weed book, I would say. Yeah. Know what weeds are there and what they're telling you.
And have that bit of a deeper connection and understanding, yeah. A
bit more practical and try not to overthink it too much.
Yeah, and then just plant.
Yeah, plant stuff, yeah.
Thanks, Luke.
No worries.
Beautiful, well done.
How was that?
Yeah, good. Funny because we were going to talk about the same stuff that you were quite happy to
that was...
And then you just went...
It's hard to do it on tap.
It is, and I struggle still, and I've been doing this for...
Well, I think...
3 years.
I'm still being recorded.
Yeah, you will.
That's like 18 minutes.
Yeah, I know, see, time flies when you're having fun.